On Whitehall's war-worn pavement, a sneering thug violently shoves a 90-year-old veteran, sending medals and memory crashing against cold stone. The coward smirks, blind to the scarlet sentinel whose steely gaze has caught every second. What this street predator doesn't realize, beneath that bearskin hat stands a combat-hardened warrior with the Queen's authority to protect her subjects. But before we jump back into the video, let us know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow I've got something really special for you. And now, back to the video. As the decorated hero struggles to rise, Thegard's granite discipline shatters. Those ceremonial boots, polished to mirror perfection, are about to march straight into a moment of brutal justice that tourists will never forget. Jenkins adjusts his regimental tie with arthritic fingers, the red fabric a splash of defiant color against this weathered gray suit. At 90, his spine remains soldier straight despite the years bent under war's memory. Today marks the anniversary of his squadron's bravest hour, a day when 19 boys became men and only 5 returned. To tell the tale. You're sure you don't want me to come along, Grandpa? Lucy asks, her nurse's eyes assessing his stability. Ash refuses his walking stick. Some journeys a man walks alone, love, he replies, patting her hand. James and William are waiting for me. Last of the old guard now. Across London, in a grimy flat, Damon Reese yanks a hoodie over his shaved head. At 27, his face is already a map of poor choices. Prison tattoos climbing his neck, a scar splitting his eyebrow. Easy pickings today, he tells his mate Kyle. All them old-timers with their fancy medals, worth a fortune online. Meanwhile, Lance Corporal Thomas Harrington stands immobile outside Buckingham Palace, his 6'4" frame encased in ceremonial, scarlet bearskin hat adding another foot to his imposing height. 4 tours in Afghanistan had prepared him for many things, but nothing quite like the disciplined stillness of Royal Guard duty. What tourists capturing selfies don't notice, his eyes constantly scanning, assessing. Even fewer know that beneath white gloves, his knuckles bear scars from Helmand province, or that inside his breast pocket rests a photo of his grandfather in the same uniform, taken decades earlier. None of these 3 men know their paths will violently converge before day's end. Albert's gnarled fingers trace the engraved names on the cenotaph, each letter a comrade who never saw England again. Beside him, James Withers and William Cooper stand in reverent silence, both in their late 80s, medals gleaming under weak autumn sunshine. 75 years, William murmurs. Still hear their voices sometimes. The 3 veterans share knowing glances. Words unnecessary between men who've seen humanity at its worst and best. 50 yards away, Damon nudges Kyle, nodding toward the elderly trio. Look at them baubles. Bet that Talon's got a Victoria Cross. $5 grand minimum. They're war heroes. Man, Kyle hesitates. My granddad. Your granddad's dead and these'll join him soon enough. Damon sneers. They don't need medals where they're going. Nearby, Guardsman Harrington's unit moves in ceremonial march toward Horse Guards parade. The daily changing of the guard proceeds with clockwork precision as tourists cluster with cameras. The 3 veterans begin their slow departure, Albert pausing to catch his breath. His friends walk ahead, not noticing when he stops to adjust his oxygen tube. Damon sees his opportunity. Separating from the crowd, he approaches the isolated old man. Need help, grandfather? His voice drips false concern. Albert looks up, smiling gratefully. Kind of you, young man, but I'm... The shove comes without warning. Brutal, calculated. Albert's frail body crumples backward, medals tearing from his chest as Damon's hand rips at them. The veteran's head strikes pavement with a sickening crack, blood pooling beneath white hair. What Damon doesn't see, Guardsman Harrington momentarily separated from his unit, witnessing everything from 30 feet away. The guard's face remains expressionless, but his eyes narrow imperceptibly as his white-gloved hands tighten on his ceremonial rifle. Damon's fingers close around the gleaming medals as tourists gasp in horror. Most turn away or fumble with phones. None intervene. The thug's triumph is short-lived as a shadow falls across him. Impossibly tall, crimson-clad. That would be a mistake, sir. The guardsman's voice is deadly quiet. Formal training battling visceral rage. Damon straightens, knife appearing in his hand. Back off, toy soldier. Harrington's training screams protocol. Royal Guards don't engage, call police, maintain position. But something deeper awakens. The soldier beneath the ceremonial uniform. His grandfather's voice echoes. Sometimes duty isn't what they tell you, Tommy. It's what you know is right. In one fluid motion, Harrington's rifle butt connects with Damon's wrist. The knife clatters away as tourists scatter. Breaking every rule of his station, the guardsman steps from his post. Across the street, James and William turn back, horror dawning as they spot their friend prone on the ground. "Albert!" William's cry cuts through the chaos as both elderly men struggle back toward their fallen comrade. Police sirens wail in the distance, but help will come too late for Albert if his head injury proves severe. Harrington kneels beside the veteran, guardsman's training giving way to combat medic experience. His white gloves press against the wound, staining crimson with blood that matches his uniform. "Stay with us, sir," he urges, recognizing the regimental pins on Albert's lapel. "Royal Fusiliers, right? My grandfather served. Normandy." Albert's eyes flutter. "Normandy," he whispers. "We were just boys." Damon seizes his moment, scrambling to retrieve the fallen medals. Harrington's attention splits fatally between the injured veteran and the escaping thief. "Let him go, son," Albert whispers, clutching Harrington's sleeve. "I've seen enough violence for one lifetime." But something breaks inside the guardsman. The careful wall between ceremony and soldier crumbling as Damon flees with pieces of history clutched in his fist. 20 minutes later, Albert lies in an ambulance, his friends climbing in beside him. The paramedic's expression reveals the gravity. Subdural hematoma, likely. At his age. The words hang ominously as doors slam shut. Harrington stands amid a storm of consequences. His commanding officer's face is thunderous. 400 years of tradition, and you abandon your post? For what? "A veteran was being assaulted, sir, and now you'll face disciplinary action, possibly discharge." The officer softens slightly. "The thief escaped anyway." "No, sir," Harrington says quietly. "He hasn't." Miles away, Damon bursts into his flat, breathless but triumphant, medals clutched in his fist. "We're rich, mate. Look at these." His voice dies as he registers the empty room. On his grimy table lies a note from Kyle. "Gone to police. Can't do this. Sorry." Panic rises as Damon realizes his only ally has abandoned him. Worse, Kyle knows where he lives. Police will arrive soon. As Damon stuffs clothes into a bag, his phone buzzes with a news alert. His blood freezes at the headline, "War Hero Critical After Attack. Queen Deeply Concerned About D-Day Veteran." The medals slip from his fingers. Not just any old man, a D-Day veteran, with royal connections. The article continues, "Albert Jenkins, 90, decorated for exceptional bravery at Normandy, remains in critical condition. Sources confirm Her Majesty has requested regular updates on his condition." Damon's petty theft has escalated into something far worse. If the old man dies. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a revelation rocks Harrington. As James shows him a faded photograph of their battalion, the guardsman's hand trembles. That's my grandfather," he whispers, pointing to a young soldier standing beside Albert. "Thomas Harrington, Sr." "Tommy's grandson?" William gasps. Good God, Tommy saved Albert at Sword Beach, caught a bullet for his trouble. "He never told me," Harrington whispers. "Some things men don't speak of." James replies solemnly. "But Albert visited your grandfather every month until he passed. Brought flowers to your grandmother after." The guardsman's world tilts. This wasn't random chance. The veteran he'd tried to protect shares a bond with his family that spans generations. His commanding officer, witnessing this exchange, steps forward. "This changes nothing officially," he says stiffly. Then lower, "Unofficially, you have 24 hours before I process the disciplinary paperwork. I suggest you use them wisely." Harrington stands before Albert's hospital bed, the old man's breathing shallow beneath an oxygen mask. Machines beep ominously as doctors speak in hushed tones about extensive bleeding and unlikely to survive surgery at his age. Lucy, Albert's granddaughter, clutches her grandfather's hand. "He was so proud today," she whispers. "Said it might be the last reunion." Her words hammer Harrington with the weight of failure. Not just a stranger he couldn't protect, his grandfather's brother-in-arms. A connection severed by violence. Across London, Damon hides in an abandoned building, paranoia growing as police helicopters circle nearby neighborhoods. News reports show his blurry image captured on tourist phones. The veteran's condition dominates every channel, a royal statement expressing profound dismay. His phone rings. Kyle. Against better judgment, he answers. They're saying manslaughter. Charges when they catch you, Kyle warns. Maybe murder if he doesn't make it. People are coming forward, Damon. That guard's been interviewed. They know about the dragon tattoo on your neck. You sold me out, Damon snarls. No, you sold yourself. Out, Kyle responds. My granddad was at Normandy too. Could have been him you attacked. The line goes dead, leaving Damon with a dawning realization. There's nowhere to hide in a city hunting for the man who attacked a national hero. At the hospital, Harrington receives a text from an army contact, an address where the suspect might be hiding. Going there means risking his career, possibly criminal charges for abandoning his post again. The doctor emerges from Albert's room, face grave. Family should prepare themselves. Next few hours are critical. Lucy breaks down. He survived Normandy, to die on a London street. Something hardens in Harrington. He removes his red uniform jacket, folding it meticulously. I need to borrow your grandfather's regimental tie, he tells Lucy quietly. She understands something in his expression. Bring back his medals, she whispers, handing him the tie. He earned them with blood. Rain lashes London as Harrington approaches the abandoned building. No longer the ceremonial guardsman, now just a soldier on a mission. Albert's regimental tie replaces his military one, a reminder of what's at stake. His phone buzzes. A text from William. Albert holding on. Doctors surprised. Old warriors die hard. A sliver of hope. But the message continues. Police say they're close to finding suspect, but medals not recovered. Those medals were his life, Thomas. Inside the derelict building, Damon jumps at shadows. News reports say police are closing in. The medals feel like burning coals in his pocket, too hot to hold, impossible to discard. Worth thousands, but who would buy them now, with every pawnbroker in London watching for them? A floorboard creaks. Damon spins, knife drawn. Military issue, that blade. Harrington emerges from shadows, no longer in uniform, but somehow more imposing. Or just for threatening old men. Stay back, Damon retreats. I didn't mean to hurt him that bad. Yet, here we are. Harrington advances steadily. I'm not here as a guardsman, not here as police. Then what do you want? Damon's voice cracks. Justice. That won't come from court. Return what you stole, and perhaps I won't make you pay the way soldiers have settled debts for centuries. For a heartbeat, calculation crosses Damon's face. Then the knife lunges forward. Harrington sidesteps with military precision. His fist connects with surgical accuracy, not aiming to subdue, but to inflict precise pain. Damon crumples, knife clattering away, but rises again with desperate fury. What follows isn't ceremonial. It's the raw combat of Afghanistan's valleys. Efficient, brutal, decisive. When Damon finally lies gasping, Harrington retrieves the medals from his pocket. My grandfather took a bullet saving his life, Harrington says quietly, indicating Albert's decorations. What did you contribute to this country that gives you the right to take these? No answer comes as police sirens wail outside, closing in. Harrington kneels, placing the medals in Damon's palm, closing the thief's fingers around them. You're going to return these yourself. Face him if he lives. Face his family if he doesn't. They'll lock me away. Damon whispers, blood trickling from his lip. Yes, Harrington agrees. But you'll sleep knowing you made one right choice in a lifetime of wrong ones. Something shifts in Damon's eyes, perhaps the first glimmer of responsibility in a life defined by its absence. The hospital corridor stretches endless as Harrington leads a handcuffed Damon forward. Police officers flank them, confusion evident in their expressions. This wasn't protocol, bringing perpetrators face to face with victims, but something in the guardsman's hardened expression deterred questions. Outside Albert's room, doctors speak in surprised tones. The bleeding stabilized. Can't explain. It medically, simply refusing to go. Lucy emerges, eyes widening at the scene before her. Her gaze hardens, seeing Damon. "You can't bring him in there. He has something to return," Harrington says quietly, "and something to understand." Inside, machines beep steadily around Albert's frail form. William and James flank his bed like ancient sentinels. Their expressions turn thunderous at Damon's entrance. "What's this boy doing here?" William demands, protective rage in his voice. Albert's eyes flutter open, cloudy with medication but still alert. His gaze fixes on Damon without recognition, then shifts to Harrington with a weak smile. "Tommy's boy, sir." Harrington's formal stance returns instinctively. "This man has something for you." Damon stands frozen until a gentle push from Harrington propels him forward. Handcuffed hands extend, opening to reveal the medals. Damon's voice fails. What can one possibly say to a man they nearly killed for metal and ribbon? Albert's trembling hand reaches out, not for the medals but for Damon's wrist. Ancient fingers wrap around the dragon tattoo with surprising strength. "Scared boy," Albert whispers. "I've seen that look before. Normandy, young German, couldn't have been 17. The room stills, hanging on each labored word. "Tried to take my life too," Albert continues. "Didn't succeed either." "I'm sorry." Damon chokes out, tears suddenly streaming down hardened features. "I didn't know." "What?" "That old men were people, once. That medals aren't just metal." Albert's voice strengthens momentarily. "Your generation never had to fight. Blessing and curse that." Harrington steps forward, taking the medals from Damon's hands, pinning them gently back on Albert's hospital gown. "Where they belong, sir." Albert's fingers trace each one, memories flooding back. "Not mine anymore, not really. Belong to the boys who never came home." He fixes Damon with a clear gaze suddenly free of medication's haze. "That's your sentence, young man. Remember their names." Albert recites 5 names, each spoken with precision despite his weakness. "Learn who they were, what they gave. Report back to me once monthly if I survive this. If not, report to my granddaughter." The police officers exchange glances, understanding. They're witnessing something beyond legal justice. Damon nods, unable to speak as the weight of genuine penance settles on him, harder than any prison sentence. "Take him away now," Albert whispers, strength fading. "And Thomas, your grandfather would be proud. Rules matter, but people matter more." 3 months later, Harrington stands at attention outside Buckingham Palace, ceremonial uniform immaculate. His disciplinary action had been reduced to a formal reprimand after royal intervention. The Queen herself reportedly commenting that certain traditions must occasionally yield to higher principles. Tourists photograph him, unaware that beneath the stoic expression lies a man forever changed. Every day at precisely 1400 hours, an elderly gentleman with a walking stick appears, accompanied by a nurse. Albert, still recovering but stubbornly alive, nods respectfully as he passes. Their ritual acknowledgement, invisible to observers but profoundly significant to both. Today, something different happens. A young man accompanies them, head bowed, shoulder supporting Albert's frail frame. Damon, weekend release from his 18-month sentence, fulfilling his promise. The tabloids had followed the story obsessively. The thug and the veteran, unlikely redemption. Initial public outrage had transformed into fascination as Albert publicly forgave his attacker and requested leniency. Harrington had testified at the sentencing, describing how Damon had voluntarily returned the medals. The judge, impressed by this gesture and Albert's wishes, had reduced charges significantly. Now the 3 men form an unlikely triangle of connection. The veteran who survived war and assault, the guardsman who broke protocol to uphold deeper duty, and the thief learning that redemption begins with facing those you've wronged. As they pass, Harrington maintains perfect stillness, but his eyes briefly meet Damon's. Something passes between them, acknowledgement of how violence had connected them, but something stronger might redeem them. Later that evening, after his shift, Harrington joins them at Albert's home. Lucy serves tea as Albert shows Damon faded photographs, patiently explaining each face, each story. The young man listens with genuine interest, asking questions, learning names, his unusual sentence being carried out with unexpected sincerity. Different world back then, Albert muses. Knew who enemies were, wore uniforms. Now, He gestures vaguely toward the window. Harder to spot. Not always, sir. Harrington replies quietly, exchanging a meaningful glance with Damon. 1 year later, Albert stands straight back despite his years, Harrington and Damon flanking him at the cenotaph. November's chill can't diminish the warmth of unexpected brotherhood forged between three men from different generations, different worlds. Damon, recently released, wears a suit for the first time in his life, his neck tattoo covered respectfully, hair grown out. He holds Albert's medals carefully, not to steal, but to place on the memorial at the old soldier's request. Not mine anymore, Albert had explained. Time for them to rest with those who earned them alongside me. As the last post echoes across Whitehall, tourists fall silent, many filming the unusual trio. The stories of the guardsman who broke protocol, the veteran who offered redemption, and the thief who found purpose, having spread worldwide through social media and news. Harrington, off-duty but military straight, salutes as Damon carefully arranges the medals. The young man who once coveted their monetary value now understands their true worth. Albert's voice carries surprising strength as he addresses the gathered crowd. Violence made us enemies for armament. Choice made us friends for life. Remember that when you tell this story. As they turn to leave, a line of royal guards snaps to attention, an unauthorized tribute to Albert arranged quietly by Harrington's unit. The old soldier's eyes glisten as he returns their salute with trembling hand. On Whitehall's war-worn pavement, where medals once crashed against cold stone, three men walk together, living proof that while some wounds never heal completely, they can become bridges to unexpected grace. The ceremonial boots that once nearly marched into brutal justice now carry Harrington alongside the two men who taught him that duty wears many uniforms, and the greatest battles are often won through mercy.